happy Shabbat to one and all. I can see that we have Larry and JB with us. We did have Kirk during the observation show, so maybe he's having weather-related problems. But how are you, fellas?
Doing good.
Doing good.
Great. Good. What we talked about today during the observation show is we finally made our way to the section in Proverbs 7, where there appears to be a change of voice. And up to that point, what we had come to realize is that God was giving us a real treasure. I mean, he was handing us the head of Christianity on a silver platter. You know, he began this whole thing by saying, you know, if you want to live, if you want to get the most out of life, observe my Torah and pay special attention to the terms and conditions of the covenant. Well, that alone destroys the credibility of Christianity. You can't have a religion of Christianity if the Torah is viable. So then he goes through all of the antidote for Christianity and really how we should go about this whole process of protecting ourselves from religion. And then he says, right outside of my window, I saw the whore. And with the whore were a bunch of dimwits, unthinking idiots. And I paid special attention. I made the connection. Leading that parade was a young man. Gee, I wonder who that would be, particularly since when you read Daniel and then Revelation, there is no mistaking the fact that the whore of Babylon is the Roman Catholic Church. So who is the person who has the most to do with the creation of the religion of Christianity?
Apollos.
There you go.
Sheol.
And whose name? Yeah, and whose name is found at the end of this proverb?
Sheol.
Right.
You know, he describes Christianity, he lays Christianity out, he talks about the consequences of Christianity, and then he says, and here he is, Sheol. And you know, you know, I mean, and yet even today, I've got some guy off some, I don't know, wannabe messianic and half Christian, talking about how Paul is misunderstood, and look at my website. I went to his webpage, and guess what, in big bold letters, guess what jumped right out at me? Yeshua HaMashiach! Right away.
Right. Yeah.
I said, well, this is a poison religious bullshit website. I mean, the second I saw it, I said, we need go no further. He made 5 points to a person I know, and I answered all 5 of them with Yahweh's words. Yeah, and he was wrong about each and every single point. In fact, you don't even have to go into the doorway at Pesach. It just means Passover. That's all it is. Just means Passover. Right. Yeah, like death passing you over, idiot. You know, but you can't get through to these people. You know, whatever.
And religion makes somebody stupid. Okay. That's why God said twice in the material we've already covered, I can't comprehend them, I can't endure being around them, and I can't save them. So it's just the way it is. You know, it's interesting, of course, about the name, Yeshua, is that there is a zero possibility that the first 2 letters in Yahweh's name are pronounced Yeh. It's from the verb Haya. There isn't any Jew on the planet that doesn't know how to pronounce Haya. You know, it is Yah. And he came in his father's name. The name Yahusha is written no fewer than 222 times in the Torah, prophets, and Psalms.
And you know what? And it's not just that. He said he's awesome and astonishing on the account of my name. My name will be on him.
Of course.
You know, it's like when I go out and I buy matzah crackers, because I'm not much of a baker, so I have to buy them. And I go out and I buy something called Yehudi, right?
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, I guess they're related to Yeh. not to Yah.
Yeah.
It's sad. It's
sad.
sad.
And this Hamashiach, do you know how many times that Hamashiach appears in the Torah, Prophets, and Psalms?
The definite article, even the Mashiach is never written, let alone the Mashiach.
Would you like to know how many times Mashiach is used in the Torah, Prophets,
I already
and Psalms?
know, 2 times. It's in Daniel.
As a noun?
Never as a noun.
Never as a noun. Is it possible to have a title be an adjective or an adverb?
No.
No, it isn't. So I want to tell you, in the entirety of the Torah, Prophets, and Psalms, not only doesn't Hamashiach ever appear, Mashiach is never used as a noun. It's not a title.
No, Mashiach is used as a name, is what it's used as.
The only reason that it now is acclaimed is because Christianity, rather than using the Mashiach,
implement of Yahowah,
or Mashiach, as a matter of fact,
they want to go Messiah and get rid of Yah, sure.
Yeah, I think there's some place along the way that Yosha probably did acknowledge when Shimon Kephesh said, you are the Mashiach, which means that you are the work of Yah. You are Yah working in our presence. That he would have admitted, yes, I am Yahweh working to fulfill the promises that I made regarding the covenant. And so as a identity designation, as a statement of purpose, the actual name is fine. But Christianity then thinking that God spoke Greek somehow, that God was somehow a Greek. Why? Because the Greeks were really cool. That he's going to have a Greek name and he's going to have a Greek title, and they came up with Christ. And so now the religious types that have tried to blend Pauline Christianity, that poison, disgusting human being, and rabbinical Judaism have, it's for them it's Yeshua, purely rabbinical, Hamashiach, a complete another fabrication.
Well, this guy did say Yah, but he said just like much like the clowns that were ascribing matzah to being cleaning up a lot of breadcrumbs. He said that he said Yahushua, so it's Shua, not Yahusha. Yasha means salvation, and
Yeah. By the way,
you want to do the Shua thing.
Twice. I mean, of the 224 times it appears, it is written
twice.
Yahushua twice, and that name means Yah cries out.
Yep.
Yah cries. That's a far cry from Yahweh saving.
Yeah, which he denotes in Hosea. He says, "I'm the only Savior."
Yeah. Now, why do you think, even though that Yosha, everybody knows that Yosha, that as it appears in the Torah, Prophets, and Psalms, is the same name that Yosha ben Yahweh. So Yosha ben Nun came in the same name as Yosha ben Yahweh. Do you have any idea why we are never told explicitly that Yosha ben Nun is the same name that will be used for Yosha ben Yahweh? Why do you think? I think
you have so you can think. So you can think. that might help.
Yeah. Yeah, because God doesn't like giving you answers on a platter. He does want you to think. Now, I think it is because God only has one name. So if I'm right about that Yahweh only has one name, and that's what he says. I don't think I'm out on a limb to say Yahweh has only one name. If he has only one name, then Yahusha really isn't a name. It is a descriptive phrase.
Yeah, of his mission, of who he is. Yahweh saves. Right. It's just Yasha Yah written backwards.
Correct. It is a descriptive phrase, not a name. Because God only has one name. God does not want us to refer to him as Yahusha. He wants us to realize
Yahweh saves. Yeah.
Right. So there's no reason for Yahweh to proclaim the name of the diminished manifestation of Yahweh engaged in the process of fulfilling the promises of the covenant, because that's not his name. That is a
well, I think that's
of what he's doing for us.
That's also a great reason why Dode said he hated people with divided loyalties. You know, you got to understand, for every covenant member, there's 10 of them, 100 of them out there that they find the name. It's never Yahusha. It's, you know, if they say that, they're always in good company. It's always Yeshua or Yahshua. And if they come off with the Yahshua thing, what I found is they're focused. It's almost they're so focused. They will quote New Testaments. They're carrying a New Testament.
Of course.
They will deny that that's what they do, but they're always going into this, into that, into this. They've never looked at extant word studies of Yahweh's, and they don't really have an interest in it either, apparently.
No.
You know.
No. Now, I'm going to tell you the second reason I don't think that we are ever told that the description, the descriptive name of Yahweh in the process of saving us is Yahusha. And that is because I don't think that was Yahweh's primary purpose. I don't think that he came to save us.
No, not at all.
Yeah.
At least not. That was a side effect. That was it happened, but that was not the primary purpose at all.
Right. The primary purpose was to fulfill the promises that he made regarding the covenant, which is why he enabled and fulfilled the first 4 of the Moed Mikre, because the first 4 Moed Mikre provide all 5 benefits of the covenant. I think it's as simple as that.
But and at the same time, and then that was quite a realization. I remember when you came to that about 3 years ago. It made total sense because you asked me, and I said, huh. You remember you asked me, and I said I thought that, the only thing I can think is that, the fall of man is designed to coincide with the fall of Mikre, which is true, but that's not really the point. The point.
No.
Yeah, right. The point was that's why Hosea was saying, Deb, where's your sting now?
Right, because Yahweh was committed to honoring the promises he had made regarding the benefits of the covenant. And he did it by enabling the first 4 Moed Mikre. That's the reason that they were fulfilled. And so, since that would be a rather elongated name, or job description, he just simply chose Yahusha. Now, Yasha, while it is the Hebrew verb to save, it also means to deliver, to rescue. And I do look at the benefits of the covenant as God rescuing us. He rescued Abraham from Babylon. He rescued us from Egypt, from the crucible. I think we are rescued and delivered from humankind to the safety of Yahweh's home, and that kind of deliverance and rescue, I think, is entirely appropriate. As for salvation, it's such a meaningless aspect of the benefits of the covenant that it's hardly worth mentioning.
Well, when you start talking about salvation, and we've talked about this before, salvation is such a bare minimum when you're talking about going into new dimensions that don't include time.
Yeah.
Things that I can't fathom.
Scott Burdink, who was the co-host and producer of Scattering Mist for all those years, he is
I know Scott.
He's a tight end as a football player. He's
right.
6'5", I think. Tremendous athlete, great basketball player. He's a tough guy. He's a man's man. He cried today. He cried today.
No, I didn't, but
there's something, and this is before we get back into Proverbs 7. There's something I shared that really didn't dawn on me until I was writing this most recent chapter, 7 of Yashayah. And I shared it during the observations program. And
talking about the choice.
I want to go over it again because it had a profound impact on me, and if it had the same influence on Scott, then it might on everyone. And that is...
Well, I doubt if it will on Dennis Tracy, but we can try. But
okay.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Okay. So we have Yahowah providing some instruction to Adam. And at this point, it's just Adam. And he says, hey, Adam, you can eat to your heart's content. You can eat until you're just absolutely satiated from absolutely every tree in the garden. And from the tree of the knowledge, which is really actually anti-political correctness. It's not knowledge. It's the ability to be discriminating, discerning, to be effectively judgmental, and process information so as to render a rational conclusion. It's the Hebrew word dayat, which means to process information in such a way that you can be discriminating and discerning. So the tree of discrimination, of discernment, of thinking, of that which is beneficial and helpful and productive, and that which is counterproductive and misleading and deceitful. So he said, you can eat everything you want, every tree in the garden, and of that one tree, that discerning tree, I would encourage you not to eat from that tree. Because if you eat from it, you're going to die. Now, that was profound in and of itself, and that, what does that tree represent? Well, that tree represents choice. If Yahweh had created us, I'm not to the point yet that really brings at least brought both Scott and I to tears, and I'll get to it, but I want to set it up in the right context. But that tree represents his choice. Adam was there with Yahweh, and Yahweh had to have at least a condition, an option where Adam could choose not Yahweh. That tree was there for that. The tree wasn't, evil in and of itself. The tree had both good and evil in it. That tree was the tree of discernment, of being able to rationally think things through. And he just said, you can eat anything you want of that one tree, though. If you eat of it, you're going to die. And so that tree existed for a sole purpose, the purpose of not Yahweh. Otherwise, Adam is not a companion in a loving relationship. He is instead akin to a slave. Has no free will. Now, this is the part that really got my attention. In the same breath, and I don't think there's 1 in a million people that have made this connection. In the very same breath, after telling Adam that, what does God say next? I think we have Kirk with us now. Hi, Kirk. Oh, you were on that 111 number, so you were here the whole time.
Apparently, I kept saying I'm not there, so I kept pressing 1 and finally I screwed that up.
Okay. All right. Now I get it. Okay. So, Kirk, in the very same breath that Yahweh provides the choice of not Yahweh, what does he say?
He says, that's the part about he's going to give him Towrah.
Yeah. I'm going to give you a woman.
Yeah.
I'm going to give you a really sexy,
really hot woman. Wow.
really attractive option that doesn't necessarily exclude me, but gives you an opportunity to have someone who is really, really ideally suited for you.
Mm-hmm.
Now, why did he do that? Why is it in the same breath as the choice to exclude Yahweh from your life?
It has to be a compelling choice.
Well, that's
and it has to be a human choice. In my opinion, it has to be a human choice.
Here's the bottom line. Larry, is there somebody that used to be a Republican zealot? You were once in charge of a county there in Florida for the Republican Party. Is there anybody that you met along the way that you were somewhat enamored with at the time, but after a while you decided, maybe this is not the best person for me to hook my...
absolutely.
Okay?
Yeah.
All right.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what if the choice was, for the rest of your life, for all eternity, to have absolutely no one to talk to. You are completely and totally alone. Or you could occasionally, when you felt like it, strike up a conversation with the guy that you once had a relationship with, but just wasn't quite your cup of tea. Which would you choose?
I choose the latter of the two.
Yeah. And so would 100% of humans.
Well,
we literally go insane. Solitary confinement, we go insane. There isn't a human on the planet that can survive it. And so if the choice that Yahweh gave us was total and complete loneliness, complete and utter isolation, or Yahweh, of course everyone's going to choose Yahweh, but not because it is what they want, not because they like him, not because of anything other than
because there's no choice involved.
Yeah, not to Yahweh is to go insane, is to be so horribly bored as to just want to die. And so what God did is gave man someone like him, someone unbelievably beautiful and attractive and perfectly designed for him, so that if he wanted to reject Yahweh's instructions, he would be alone.
That's really profound,
Really profound. What that does
is
that makes God, who created this entire universe and authored life and went to all of this trouble expressly because he wanted to have a relationship with Adam, extraordinary.
Yeah.
It makes him one unbelievably cool dude, man.
Yeah.
You don't get any better than what he did. Now, what's also interesting is that beyond what it did for Adam, it sets up all of humankind thereafter. Now, all of us have this option. It's not total isolation or God. It's Yahweh or an allegiance with one of or many of the human institutions of society or religion or militarism or religion. Religion, politics, militarism, or societal customs. We all now have that same option. It is really compelling, interesting options with our fellow man if we choose not God. And so this whole thing that Yahweh is offering us is the choice to deliver us from that second option, because it got us in so much trouble. But yet, where would we be even now? Let's just say that the covenant. Let's say the covenant was only, I'll just use my own sense. So, if the covenant was just me and Yahweh, we'd have a good old time. But the amount of fun that we would have, the enjoyment we would have, would be 1/1,000,000th of what we are having when we share this experience with other family members.
Mm-hmm.
Same thing. So God provided a choice that ultimately ended up with an ideal result. Thousands of people will be part of his family for all eternity who chose this because they liked Yahweh. They respected him. They respected the offer, and they acted based upon his advice. That's a marvelous, marvelous scenario that he established. All right, so that being the case, I do want to return to Proverbs 7. So after telling us that Paul, the founder of the Christian religion, would be possessed by the whore, controlled by the whore, and used by the whore. In fact, it says this, so I'll just use God's words. And she, the whore, establishes her influence over him, harshly overpowering and binding him. Binding is the closest Hebrew word to religion. Then she makes him submit to her, brazenly and shamelessly possessing and oppressing him with her presence, demon possessing her, and her improper aggrandizing sayings, which are directed towards him. Paul, everything was. But Paul say, and not just in the ego of Paul, but Paul became just like Satan. Just like Muhammad became just like Satan. Perverted, twisted, corrupt, and astonishingly egotistical. You know, they were the messenger of God. It just so happened that their God was the Lord. This tells us exactly how Satan came to control Paul. Now, this brings us to 7:14. There is a change of voice and perhaps perspective, beginning with Proverbs 7:14. So Yahweh began by addressing his children in first person. He continued to do so through the 7th verse. But then throughout the intervening 6 verses, God's viewpoint changed to reflect the alluring and adversarial ways of the whore of religion. As a result, we are left with 2 options, both plausible, which I have concluded was the intent. If the following is in God's voice, then it shows Yahweh acknowledging that he has personally paid the price to reconcile our relationship with him, and that by doing so, he honored, satisfied, and fulfilled the sworn promises he made to us in his Torah. This would therefore be in contrast to the whore of religion, who was offering nothing in value. However, since the following presentation isn't entirely consistent with Yahweh's plan and nature, ever so subtle corruptions of it, even with the most favorable interpretation of the words and their definitions, God may actually be revealing the strategy the whore has deployed to make the religion of Christianity seem believable by having it mirror the truth, just inverting it. So if this portion of the story is religious, and I think it is in Satan's voice. Now, there are several reasons I'd like to present this discussion from God's viewpoint and then from Satan's. First, I am personally convinced now that it is Satan's perspective that is being shared here. But I'm convinced that it is so subtle because God wants to make the point that Satan doesn't create, that Satan simply counterfeits what God has said, so that all of Satan's religious doctrines are simply tweaks on what Yahweh said, just enough to make it fake. So I think that is what's happening here. But, you know, I have never and will never say that I am inerrant and therefore that you have to read it the same way that I'm going to share it with you. I think it's much wiser to lay it out and say, here it is both ways, you make your call. But that's the conclusion that I've come to. Now, throughout this entire section, there's something that is unique, and that is that the pronouns, like this pronouns all the way through up to this, the last 6 verses, which have the whore manipulating the lone individual man, Paul. The pronouns were all either she or he. Now we move into a section where the pronouns are all common, which means they're undetermined. They're neither feminine nor masculine. So that change ought to tell you something. And there is reason to suspect it was written this way in order to demonstrate the allure of Satan, to explain how the devil masquerades as God, to manipulate people into worshiping him, showing how the whore's religious counterfeit could easily be misinterpreted so that people think they're worshiping God as the Lord when in fact they're bowing down to Satan. So I think this is confusing for the very reason that religion is designed to confuse. It's based on Babel, the Hebrew word for confusion. Therefore, God is exposing us to the whore's favorite tactic.
But don't you think he said that so we would know, we'd recognize the anti-Torah or the Torah-less one? I mean, isn't that what he's...
The Torah-less one's going to do exactly the same thing.
Yeah, he's going to be exactly like this.
Mm-hmm.
So here's your warning.
Christianity is exactly like this. Paul is exactly like this. Yeah, I think so. But I also think that when you're dealing, Paul and Muhammad both were never up front. They were always pussyfooting around. They were always trying to dance between raindrops. They were they wanted to convey their antagonism for Jews and for the Torah and for the covenant and for Yahowah without just being black and white about it. And so, you really have to understand the Quran to expose and condemn it. The same thing is true with Paul's letters. Paul's letters, a few places, come right out and say it, but most of the time, Paul, dances around. And so, that's just the way that Satan operates. But when deceit deceives in this way, you really got to be on your game to figure it out. I mean, you could give an accurate translation of this to 1,000 Christians, and not one would see Paul in it.
It's stunning. It's stunning, but that's true.
It's true. It's true. This is subtle. Religion is subtle. It's designed to be subtle. When I was dealing with, and I had reason to deal with Satan's first encounter with Towrah yesterday, because I was translating the last sentence in Yashiyah, the second chapter, and it uses a term. It uses Nasama, which doesn't appear very often, but Nasama was right there, and it was off Nasama. And God was telling us to stay away from everyone who has an off Nasama. And I'm saying, what in the world is an off
Poor
Nasama?
judgment skills.
And so I decided to track down how Yahowah defines off, because I was looking up in the lexicons, and
how do you spell it?
You really have to scratch your head to make sense of it in the lexicon. So what I found is the very first time that Satan goes to Towrah, he's allowed into the garden. He opens his mouth and he begins to talk to Towrah. You know what the first word that he uses? The first word out of Satan's mouth? Off. Very first word he uses.
Of course.
Yeah, off. And so I developed an understanding of what Satan was doing and why an off Nasama was such a terrible thing that we had to stay away from. And it's all because of hypotheticals and equivocations that are presented from an attitude of resentment that instill an angry response. It's why, you mentioned Yahweh's Torah and Christians respond angrily. Paul created these hypotheticals surrounding the Torah and its covenant that caused people to resent God because he resented God. And that's the nature of Om. And so I was, it all ties here together. So you really have to realize that if you're going to get involved in a translation, you got to take your time. You got to think through the words. You can't be a slave to the lexicons and just say, well, Umph means notwithstanding or nonetheless or
yeah, right. I mean, that's there was a religious group that caused a big problem, especially with me, that I'm kind of embarrassed about, because I went nuts because I thought, and I have to apologize to both Richard and JB, I thought they were siding with them, just the way that the emails were presented. I was like, are you kidding me? The point that I'm making here is that there was a group there that said that they may agree with some of Craig's translations and then admitted to walking around thumping a Bible. Well, Yahweh tells us not to use the published Christian material for a reason, doesn't he?
Yeah, it does.
And if you think you can fix it with 3 or 4 concordances that all go back to the most recent corruption 2 or 3 times each, then think that you can do what Yahweh told you not even to try to attempt to do, which is to fix a Bible. You're not supposed to be reading out of them, folks.
No.
That's just the way it is.
If you try to read a New Testament, Yeah, that's hopeless. I mean, it's really hopeless.
You know what? I've seen the Old Testament too, and as far as I'm concerned, you can call a Christian Old Testament an Old Testament. It's trash, 90% of it anyway. It's just a lot of religious sounding tripe. It's not even real. The words aren't even there that are supposed to be there.
2 chapters ago, I spent a good part of the chapter trying to compare my translations to what appeared in Christian translations of the Torah, Prophets, and Psalms. And oh my goodness, there really is almost no tangible connection between the words as they appear and what you read in an English translation. So they are very problematic. Now, that is not to say that mine are perfect. I would never make that claim. There is, each time I go through them, I try to make them better, and they're as good as I'm capable of making them. They're at least an honest effort in trying to convey what God said as completely and as accurately as is possible with the tools that we have available to us.
There is honest effort. The religious translators don't even put an honest effort into it. They don't put an effort into it.
No, they don't.
Well, here's the problem. You cannot go to a sewer and clean it up. I mean, you just can't.
No,
Expect to be
on this deal with JB and with Richard, I did read JB's letter, and I thought it was really quite thoughtful. I didn't see JB taking sides. I just saw JB.
No, it was something.
I want to interject into this issue and share my thoughts, but he wasn't taking any sides. And then I read Richard's, and Richard has learned to write, man. Man, I just learned to write. Sounds like he couldn't write previously. He's always been a writer, but man, does he write beautifully. I don't know if it was yesterday or today, I read what he wrote, and I was in stitches laughing. First of all, because it's really funny.
Yeah, it's true.
Man,
he's much more eloquent than he gives himself credit for.
I saw it all out of context is my problem.
But I read the first comment that I read to Richard. I wrote a response back, and I was hoping that Richard would see that I was agreeing with him, even though I used Richard as the example, because Richard says that that he is embarrassed by the fact that that way too often he uses less than ideal language, and so I waded in on the language side of it, and I shared, my viewpoints on language, why I don't use certain words. Although occasionally I do, but when I use them, it's almost always in private. It's almost always the same circumstance. Some idiot on television or on the radio says something that is not just untrue, but is extraordinarily damaging to people to hear. And sometimes I'm just sitting there alone, and I'll say it. I feel badly about saying it because it doesn't accomplish anything. But
whatever. I don't feel bad about
comments
things
were actually supportive of the position that we were all trying to take. But Richard's letter today says, "Gosh, come on, folks, don't get all tied up in a word when you're in an environment where the great preponderance of the words are being conveyed in such a way that they aren't anywhere else in the world, and you can actually get to know who Yahweh is and what he's offering, and to reject that because one word in 1,000 is irritating to you, it probably is not a good choice." But that's how I read, Richard's reply today. But I haven't got a letter today
was the
from
fact that
Sharon.
all
The
they
first
took
letter
away
I got
from
from
that
Sharon
show was that one thing.
Yeah, and I did get a
all
letter
they took away.
Yeah, from Sharon today that I didn't pass along to everybody else, but it was actually quite lovely. It was really a very, very, very nice letter that I received from her today. So I hopefully the whole thing is just all right.
Whatever.
We survived it, and the important thing here is that you've just done something that is important to us, which is that we need to make certain that that to the greatest extent possible, while we all realize we have some flaws, JB and Richard and Kirk and Scott and you, Larry, and Jackie and so many others are extremely important to the family. Constantly involved in the process of trying to share who Yahweh is and what He's offering. And the last thing we want is a permanent damaging rift between anyone in the family.
No, that's absolutely true. I mean, that's just absolutely true. And, you know, it was my mistake. I mean, I was working. I was in the middle of what it was you'd put up, burning my ears and this and that. What you were doing was quoting them. And I was going, "You're what? Your ears are burning? What, are you kidding me?"
No.
You know, what are you, a first grader? Put a dress on. You know, I mean, I'm the kind of guy that goes right after this stuff.
Yeah.
And
one of the
it was stupid of me because I was reading it out of context. Of course, I wasn't careful. And it was Fred's wife that straightened me out, if you want to know the truth. She goes, "No, wait a minute. That's not what was happening here." And you know, I can be straightened out because guess what? I'm an idiot. I'm an idiot, and I need to be straightened out from time to time.
Yeah, sometimes. That's
just the way it is.
A straight-up guy.
But I will never have anybody tell me that saying using the F-bomb means you need to be punished and I'm going to teach you and all this childish nonsense, because that's not what we are, and I don't have a leader. And to walk into our group and to talk about Larry, your leader, first of all, Larry's not a leader. I find this very, very condescending and second rate. I thought they came in there looking to become leaders, and they both got bounced out on their collective asses. That's all it was.
Yeah.
That's what made them angry. Yeah. They wanted to lead.
Bottom line here is that, well, I'm not going to say bottom line. I want to say one other thing about just the environment, which is why you, I think, jumped to conclusions. It is really difficult with electronic media. It's one of the real problems with society today, whether it be Facebook or texting or emails or Instagrams or whatever it may be. It is really difficult in electronic media where you do not have the face, you do not have the expression, you do not have the consonants, and you do not have the voice of the individual. You're reading words. You can't tell if they're being said in jest. You can't tell if they're being presented as as the projection of somebody else's argument. It's really, you can't even tell sometimes who they're coming from because we hear so many comments,
especially in these emails.
Oh, of course, it is so easy to misunderstand what somebody is saying and to get into a drag-out argument when nobody meant any harm in the first place, that it was a case of mistaken identity. So we have to be careful because the media, while very powerful in terms of its outreach, is also susceptible to problems that we wouldn't otherwise have.
That's right. That is right.
And then the second thing is that, well, at the end of this chapter 7, which I'll send out tomorrow after I finish my first read past through. I finished the chapter, but I like to read it through one time before I send it out. I decided that I would tackle something that Roy had sent to me. And Roy had sent me 2 letters. One was on the nature of the trees in the garden, and the other one was on the Nesoma. And since the Nesoma came up in the last statement of Yahshua 2, and I had to go back to the garden to figure out what kind of Nesoma we were talking about there, I figured, this is the place. I might as well go ahead and try to incorporate Roy's 2 insights on these things into the chapter. And in so doing, wouldn't you know it, the 2 proverbs that explain the tree of life speak specifically about language and how we approach other people. And so it's there, and it's worth considering, and we will end up doing shows on them. I had never seen this stuff before. First time I translated it, and I thought it was interesting in terms of the language. And one of the most interesting things, and I didn't make much of a comment on this because I was trying to just present the information and let people make their own conclusion. But there's one place where Yahweh uses that word, and I've forgotten it right off, that it starts with a CH, that can mean, primary meaning is to respond, to make a declaration. The secondary meaning is to bow down in worship. And
yes.
he was, pardon?
I said, yeah, I know.
Yeah. So he was using that word.
Primary meeting is to make a declaration, something I do all the time. I never
and
bow
so
down and worship.
He used that word, and he was talking about the arguments that we propose and their impact on people. And the whole thing was such that every word had two different meanings. And so you could interpret it as, you know, if you give a thoughtful answer to someone that is religious, you know, they're going to get angry by it. And they're going to respond angrily. And you can also read it as if you give somebody an angered response who is thoughtful, that you're going to inspire them to anger. And so it's really interesting trying to go through this and say, what is God saying? Or unless is he really saying all of these things? But I think you'll find it interesting as to what he said. Anyway, I want to get back to Proverbs 7:14. So first, this is in God's voice. He may be saying, a reconciling sacrificial offering of fellowship was provided by me. The day I fulfilled and completed my vows. Now, was a sacrificial
that makes sense
offering,
to me.
Okay, was a sacrificial offering provided by Yahweh?
Yep.
Did he complete his vows in a day?
Yes. Yes, he did.
No.
Yep.
No, he did
no,
not.
he didn't.
No,
it
he
seems
did not.
He did.
Nope. Yeah, that was the problem that I had with it. No, he didn't. What's wrong with that?
Were provided
Larry?
by me the
I mean,
day I
Kurt?
fulfilled and completed
Ain't no matzah in this.
Yeah, man.
Yeah,
he did make a sacrificial offering. Provided by him on Pesach.
See, I'm thinking of the 3 Moed
but did he fulfill that in a day? On the day?
No, that was 2 days. That was 2 days.
Most important day he missed.
Betcha. So what religion? What religion focuses on the singular day that Yahweh made his sacrifice?
The same one that focuses on a wooden pole.
There
the
you
same
go.
one that focuses on a wooden pole to hide the truth so it doesn't go any further.
Christianity. On the day that I made my sacrifice.
Yeah, that's right.
That's how subtle it is. That's how easy it is to miss.
Very subtle.
Yep.
You're right.
But it's not just subtle. It's life and death. It's everything.
Yeah. Yes, but it's subtle. It's very
subtle. Of course, it's really subtle.
You know, they say the devil's in the details, but the opposite is true also. Yahweh's in the detail.
Yep.
Well, you know,
Yahweh has made a reconciling sacrifice on our behalf for the relationship. However, there were 2 sacrifices over 7 days. Pesach and Matzah as the first of the 7 Mikre, not 1 day. The final
right, and in Habakkuk he says the same thing. He goes right to the wooden pillar, stops them from seeing any further.
That is correct.
Yes.
All ties together, doesn't it?
Thing.
Yep.
Yeah, I get it now. Yeah, I blew that, but you know, it's easy enough to blow it.
Listen, I'm going to tell you, just to show you how fallible I am here, because I don't want you hanging out there, Larry. I want you to be in good company when you're hanging out there and you blow it.
Yeah.
First time I went through these statements, I said, he's talking about the whore here, and I translated all of these things in the whore's voice. And then I said, who am I to do that? This is a proverb. And the proverb, it's Yahweh speaking in first person to his children. He's just returned to first person. I can't write this in the whore's voice. It's too close to the truth. And so I completely eliminated everything I had done, and I started all over again, and I wrote it all in Yahweh's voice. And then I sent it out to a couple of people and said, oh, God, I'm really uncomfortable with this. And I sent it out. And Roy gave me a note, and his note arrived at the same time that I had already pulled up the chapter and said, I got to rewrite this. And his note said, hey, Craig, there ain't no way. It can't be in Yahweh's voice. And so I was already about a third of the way through rewriting it, and I spent 2 days rewriting it. And then because I rewrote it all, I had tossed away it in Yahweh's voice. So I ended up having to go back and write it in Yahweh's voice just so I could show you why it's not in Yahweh's voice.
You know, when you get down there, and I know we're not quite there, but when you get to Proverbs 7:18, you know, he really describes this big love fest, which really does, describe describe the religion of Christianity. I mean, we're all out here alone. I mean, we're just out here alone. I mean, that's just the truth of it.
Yeah.
Most of us even do Pesach alone, you know?
Yeah, we do.
I mean, really.
Yeah, we do. Yeah. That's why I want to tell you why this program and the communication that we have through the books is so important, because while it is I'm very content to spend my day listening to Yahweh and translating His Word and learning from Him. It's really fun for me. I'm just really content to do that. There is something about being together as a family that is enriching. It's what makes it especially fun. So anyway, this first statement, it's so close, but it's closest to Christianity. It's the exact ploy that Satan pulled. Now, the next statement. For this reason, I went out, descended to serve, and extended myself, to approach and to meet you, to extend an invitation to you, calling you out, to welcome you, earnestly seeking your presence. And I have located you. Now, Yahweh descended from heaven in the seventh dimension, extending Himself to serve us. That part's true. He invited us to join Him because He seeks our presence. However, the covenant is the reason that Yahweh descended to serve us, and it was not mentioned here. So in actuality, the fulfillment of His mikre have served to make this relationship possible. However, this statement seems to suggest that His purpose was to approach us rather than enabling us to approach Him. And also, the sacrifice singular was somehow the purpose in and of itself. Further, the Torah's purpose is to help us find God, not the other way around. This says, and I located you. That's not how it works.
That's not how it works at all.
No.
I located you. Yeah,
no.
That is the Christian idea, though, because He's omnipresent. He's everywhere. Yeah, sure.
So, and equally concerning, Yahweh has told us in very specific terms where He saw this man and with whom He was associating. And it was not with him.
Nope.
All right. So then we have 7:16. And I have spread out beautiful fabrics on my couch, cutting the most elaborate and dark textiles of processed fibers of linen out of Egypt. Okay, when I was doing this, when it was in Yahweh's voice, I was in, what in the hell?
Out of Egypt. Yeah, you're right.
Back to Islam, or in the Quran, and fabrics out of Egypt? No way. This reads like the Quran, for crying out loud. And that's where Roy sent me back and said, God is not taking His fabrics for couches in heaven from Mitzrayim. No way.
No, that's the place we're walking away from.
Forget it. Correct. Forget it.
Yep.
You're
right. This is all in the enemy's voice. I mean, yes. I mean, that not a lot of people would have. I told you this before. Not a lot of people would have had the guts to do this. You understand that? I mean, they just wouldn't.
I did it.
It's like Yahweh can't be
I didn't have the guts to
sarcastic.
stay with it. That's why I rewrote it. And then finally, I just said I couldn't live with myself. I said no. It's the one thing I found about Yahweh is He is consistent. He is perfect. He doesn't cut corners. There is no way this is from Him. He doesn't compromise. Can't be from Him.
Let me throw out two words for you real quick in this sentence you just read. First of all, where it says my couch or bed is translated Eris. That's also a sick bed.
Mm-hmm.
When I figured this is Satan, I put all the negative meanings down as well as positive meanings.
Yeah. By the way, it's also the bed that you're used as the litter that would carry somebody away who has died in battle. Not just a sick bed. It's a gurney that is used to carry a dead body.
And then you move down to the bedspread. And if you go to the early meaning of the bedspread is let me skip down to the linens. Etun is also is like Aton, And then that's a lattice that is used, or shutters that are used to shut up a window to block out the light.
Shut out light.
That's not in context. That would not be in the context of what Yahweh would use. He's light to open and to enlighten us. So every one of those words that I was doing on this one and several of the others is just that ain't Yahweh. That's why I told you, it can't be, it can't be, it can't be. So you're on solid ground. It's nobody can.
Well, when you're talking about Egypt and you're talking about one day, I mean, we got problems here on both of them.
But
I have lightly dusted my bed. Now, Yahweh, through Yosha, tells us that he's going to move over on his throne so we can sit right beside him. Co-regents, if you will, over the universe. But I don't know of any place where Yahweh says, I have a bed and you can lie down with me.
No, that's
that almost creeps me out.
Spirits don't have sex.
Yeah.
So that ain't,
Yeah, okay. I'm hearing that.
But I would go one further. I can understand why, when we're camping out, there might be some comfy sofas around. They're not going to have Egyptian fabric on it. But, personally, that's not the kind of furniture that I want to be sitting on as I'm around the old bonfire on the Shabbat as we're making s'mores. But let's just say I can go along with having some place comfy to sit as we're enjoying the bonfire. But a bed? What in hell would we have to do with a bed in heaven? Do you think we're going to get tired? Do you think
not if you're made out of energy.
How in the world are you going to eat a bed in heaven? I'm sorry.
Our seventh day of rest ain't going to be rest. It's when we gather. It's when we get to talk about all the stuff we've done.
Of course.
Seventh day of freedom would be another way to put it, really. But,
Yeah. Okay, so the next one. I want you to choose to continually come and walk this way. Actually living like this. For us to fully experience love. This is Dodim. Until the approach of the morning, and for an eternity thereafter, let us enjoy one another's company, reveling in the pleasure of love, of adoration, and affection.
This is pillow talk.
Oh, my goodness.
It's definitely Christian talk.
It's Christian talk.
I think my relationship with Yahweh is, well, hugely inferior to Dode's, similar to Dode's, in the sense of I come at it the same way. We're buds. I know I'm flawed. I get it that he's infinitely superior to me, but I'm really comfortable around him. I just really am. I'm comfortable around him. I got no issue with saying, you're going to do all these things for me, and my flaws don't bother you in the least because that's what you've said. You're committed, God, to doing what you said, and so I don't have an issue pushing God's buttons in the sense of saying, I know that I don't have to worry about a Muslim jihadist coming to threaten me. I don't have to worry about it. You've already made your promise. It's a done deal. I'm really comfortable in our relationship. I don't put God on a pedestal. I don't tell him 10 times a day, oh, I really love you. I know you love me. The Bible tells me so. Just don't do that. It's not real. It's just not the nature of a relationship.
It's like somebody saying, if they walked up and they said, I praise you, Larry. I praise you. I wouldn't even know what the hell that means. If somebody said to me, thanks for buying me dinner last night.
Yeah.
I'd understand what that means. I'd say, you're welcome, no problem.
Yeah, no problem. Let me give you an idea, Larry. When all this was going down and one of the people I thought was trying to distance you and I from one another, I just wrote this back. I just said, Larry has always been, is, and will always be my friend. That's just the bottom line. Larry has always been, is, and always will be my friend. calling you my friend, very comfortable with that. I wouldn't go so far to say I love you. You know,
even as lovable as he is, right?
Even as lovable as he is,
that's
love
just
is
because you don't know me, pal. That's all.
You know, I mean, I really like Scott. I really like you, Kirk. I'm just not going to use the term love.
Right, I'm not
between
no,
me
I'm not.
and Kirk. I really like you, but I'm not going to use the term love. I'll use the term love as it relates to a man, if that man is my son. You know, but outside of my family,
no, I do know.
Yeah, and with Yahowah, my relationship with Yahowah is far more man to man than it is man to spirit in terms of the set apart spirits. It's just the way I relate, and so I don't use the term love. I use the term respect. I use the term. I think he's funny, that he's cool, that he's enjoyable to be around.
Well, he never even
brilliant.
requires you to love him. He said, I want you to love my name, and he said, and I want you to respect me, as in you're
right. And I do.
But he never says, I want you to love me.
This
he
love
never says
test
that.
here, that we're just going to sit around and love one another.
Yeah, that's right. He never says that.
Right.
He never says it.
No,
never.
I just don't see that as, that's not the God I know. The God I know wants to go off and have fun. He wants to be sarcastic when it's appropriate. He wants to joke around when it's appropriate. He wants to screw around when it's by screw around, I mean, just do some things that are off the wall. Not everything with God is calculated. It really isn't. There are things that are calculated, but I think that the whole idea of a relationship is not calculated. You know, if Yahweh created us to be his robot and he programmed us to do what he wanted, do you know how long it would take for him to get tired of that?
10 seconds?
Yeah, if that. If that. So what that means is we aren't programmed. We're gonna do stuff that's off the wall, and this idea of us just wallowing in love. I mean, first of all, why in the world would God love me? I can see why he'd be entertained. I can see why I can make him giggle. I can see why it'd be fun. But I'm really much more comfortable with the relationship terms that are real.
If you're shamaring Torah, and you are studying his word and responding appropriately and learning, is there any way he could separate you from Yahweh? Anybody could separate you from Yahweh?
No, of course not. No.
Okay, so then everything else is academic.
Yep.
I mean, you screw up, you screw up.
Yeah,
Who cares?
that's right. Who cares? Doesn't even know.
Yeah, he's light, he sees his light.
Now, I understand that God's favorite person in the world, the name means beloved. Dode means beloved. Now, it's a kind of a special term, but it's used right here. It's, love. Loves in the sense of Dodim. And I would agree. God is lovable, and he is absolutely perfect.
Yeah, I mean, that's one thing to say somebody's really lovable. It's another to say, I love you. And, we had a person who had been, really in the group for almost a year and a half. Didn't really contribute much, but on her page wrote this incredible diatribe about how with every breath I love you and I'm with you and you're with me always. And it sounded like, it was her stab at a Mizmor.
Mm-hmm.
And it sounded like a Mizmor straight out of an English Bible. It was horrible. And I just took it apart and said, this isn't true, that isn't true. Are you so important he's really with you all the time? I said, he's not omnipresent, so how can this possibly be unless you're overly important? And, I just went through this whole thing with her and finally said, you're really going to have to leave the group because in a year and a half you haven't learned anything. But other than how to be religious and use his name at the same time, which is really sad. Yeah.
Now, one of the things that's interesting here is that there is the phrase Ad Ha Bokor. Ad Ha Bokor. I have tried my best to put this in Yahweh's voice. I translated until the approach of morning and for an eternity thereafter, because Ad can mean eternity. But if you're going to accurately translate the phrase Ad Ha Bokor, it's until the morning. prostitute. Yeah, hey, man, sure, I'll spend the night with you today.
It fits that pretty well.
Doesn't it? I mean, it is a prostitute. It's until the morning.
Yeah, giving it thought.
Exactly like a whore. You think that God is going to tell you, hey, I'm going to engage in this relationship. I'm going to make you part of my family until morning.
Mm-hmm. And I'm moving on.
The next day, man, I'm moving on, and you're on your own. Can you imagine marrying somebody that says, I'll love you until the morning?
Well, don't they have those kind of marriages in Islam?
Yes, they do.
Oh.
It ain't love.
Number 4.
Okay.
You know what that's called?
Okay,
It's called
number
temporary wife. That's called temporary wife.
rotating
They actually really have that.
Yeah, they do.
It's called sleep with a really hot slave, just that you got to claim it as a marriage so you can get
prostitute.
Well, you got to go to the cleric to get the piece of paper signed, and you have to pay him, by the way.
Of course, yeah. Like rabbinical Judaism, there's always a cost involved. However, it is for naught, because man, he has walked on a path that is far away and is now estranged. So if indeed this is a God's voice, it would be true. Most have turned him down. Yahweh most always affirms that his covenant family in heaven lives in his home, but not here. His is addressing the wayward man, not God. So while his home becomes our home once we are part of his family, this estranged man is clearly on a path that is leading away from the covenant. However, it is for naught, because the man isn't in his home. Well, if God was speaking, he wouldn't use his. It would be my home.
Mm-hmm.
It is for naught because the man isn't in my home. He didn't say that. It says, however, it is for naught because the man is in his home. I mean,
This
really
is
subtle.
clearly written in the enemy's voice, and you know, I've done that before when I'm talking. I've done that.
Yeah.
I get that. I totally get
Yeah, you
that.
do it all the time. Yeah, when you have kind of one of your funny advertisements for religion. And
yeah.
But you know what? Again, just think of how subtle that is. It's a pronoun that is twisted. It's just like a counterfeit bill. You change one line and it becomes worthless. It's a liability.
Right.
You change one pronoun from my to his, and it goes from being true to being false.
Is it significant? I looked up ish again, which I would never normally look up at this stage, but it's, besides man, husband, man, one, it also has adultery, but it also has Benjamite 3 times.
Yeah, it does, doesn't it?
It didn't have another tribe, it just had Benjamin 3 times.
Yeah,
all with negative connotations, correct?
Yeah, and one of the problems that I've had, because I see a lot of that, where the words will come up and the lexicons will cite Benjamin, and they typically cite Benjamin because the word is the name of someone associated with the tribe of Benjamin. And I typically don't play off of it just because, there are so many profound, right in your face, all the Benjamite is the plague of death, that these are really subtle and they take a lot of tracking down to, but that's the reason that they list the lexicons, put Benjamin or Benjamite and associates with some of these words, is that there was an individual from the tribe of Benjamin with that name, or there was a town in the territory of Benjamin that carried that name.
Okay, fair enough.
That's the reason it's there. So there is a legitimate connection. It's just that it's, you're really chasing
Well,
it
it's
to
compared to
make
the
the
other. I
point.
just, write them all down anyway, so.
Yeah, no, it's a good thing to do. I started to include them and then took them out, and I'm just sharing it. So it's not wrong to include them. I took them out because sometimes if you have to really work to make a point, and the point is not a strong one, and it takes a lot of effort to make it, then sometimes you're counterproductive by leading people away from the stuff that is profound and right in your face.
Sure.
And this is already pretty
because
subtle argument.
people who want to challenge you are going to automatically go to your weakest arguments, and they're going to Well,
we're going to get to Paul real quick here on the next word. It's halak, rather.
Yeah.
And so a long journey, so it's more profound there. So I agree.
Yep. Yep. Now, if this segment of the story is being told in the whore's voice, it is incumbent upon us to render each word so that to the greatest degree possible it reflects the Christian perspective, revealing how the whore uses religion to fool the foolish into worshiping Satan as the Lord God. Keeping in mind that the Hebrew language was created to present a choice between good and evil. That's why that tree exists. And thereby convey the consequence of our choices. So while everything I've presented previously is supported by the most reputable Hebrew lexicons, and Kirk, you verified that, and dictionaries, what follows is also justifiable when rendered from an entirely different perspective. It's just like a na. A na can mean afflict, but its primary meaning is to answer and respond. Yare can mean fear, but its primary meaning is to respect. There's a lot of words in Hebrew like that. All right. The sacrifice of being killed as a peace offering to finish and fulfill the promise of fellowship were provided by me, the Almighty. The one day I fulfilled and completed, and therefore finished once and for all my vows.
That's so.
They're in Christianity. I died for you.
Oh, that's
Nothing
Christianity.
Right. Nothing happened on Matzah.
Right.
Nothing happened on Bekurim. Nothing happened on Shabuah. Nothing.
Dead in the
rest of
for
the rest
3
of this
days.
stuff is a waste of time. I died for you. The sacrifice of being killed as a peace offering to finish and fulfill the promise of fellowship was provided by me, the Almighty. The day I fulfilled and completed, and therefore finished once and for all my vows. That's it. Therein is Christianity. This is the dark and deadly soul of Christianity. The religion's God died, sacrificing himself on Good Friday as he completed in one day, not only fulfilling the sum total of God's promises, but in so doing, ending the purpose of his prior testimony. There'd be no mention of Passover, of the Lamb, of the doorway to life, or what followed over the next 2 days, unyeasted bread and firstborn children. It would lead all Christians issuing nedar vows, pledging that they believe that their God actually died and that his death resolved their sin. And lest I forget, the primary definition of all as a preposition is over, and as a noun is almighty. And this is a summation of Satan's ambition to be seen as al, over and above the Most High. It is the raison d'etre of the most popular religion in human history. For this reason, I came out to bring forth, to approach and meet you, calling out to you, longing to darken your presence, and I have found you, attaining control over you, possessing you.
Darken your presence is kind of a scary thought if you're thinking in terms of Yahowah. Yeah.
Yep, in every pagan religion, the Son of God dies in the spring to resurrect life. This is the reason Satan came in the guise of the Babylonian Tammuz, the Egyptian Osiris, the Greek Dionysus, the Roman Bacchus, the Druid Jesus. In so doing, the whore of religion would darken men's souls, precluding them from seeing the light. While Satan has been deprived in this way, destined into the darkness of Sheol, the devil would use Shaul to take countless others with him. If misery loves company, they would have their party. And while Satan has found many, attaining control over them with his religions, he only possesses those he inspires to create and convey these religions. But such was the case with Paul. Every time you has been used in this proverb, it has been singular and masculine. You know, in English, we can say you, and you don't know if I'm talking singular, plural, masculine, and feminine. We know it here. For this reason I came out to bring forth, to approach and meet with you, masculine singular, calling out to you, masculine singular, longing to darken your presence, masculine singular, and I have found you, masculine singular, attaining control over you, possessing you, masculine singular. It's a lot different when you actually convey the gender, isn't it?
Yes, it is. I mean, it's very direct. I mean, we're talking about a single, obviously, young man with real poor judgment skills. Yep.
Yeah, real poor. Wait, that's the truth. I have blanketed covers on my bed, cutting dark-hued and elaborate fabrics of processed and ghostly fibers to bind out of the crucibles of human religious oppression. Now there is
created a religion.
Atun Mitzrayim, with the words rendered with their primary definitions. And I have blanketed, that's Rabad, I have placed over, lowering the object beneath. Covers, spreads which cover up and cover over. On my bed, my couch, my reclining furniture, and my death fire. Cutting dark-hued and elaborate fabrics, both, gathering vivid cloth and applying fine needlework and embroidery, of processed and ghostly fibers to bind, of fine threads and linens from an unused root meaning to bind, akin to et, and in the plural etem, necromancers and ghosts of the dead and disembodied, of the occult, sorcerers and their idols, and etem, shutting the door and causing them to ignore, to forget, and not to respond. So this is he wove into this fabric sorcerers, idolatry, ghosts, the occult. Yeah, it's not of God, is it? And all of that came from was from the crucibles of human oppression, Mitzrayim. Pauline doctrine covers over the truth, blanketing the Torah in a dark and elaborate cloth embroidered with the self-proclaimed apostles' musings. Christianity is woven out of the binding religious fibers Paul possessed on behalf of the occult to shut Passover's door to life and to cause billions to ignore the Torah. The bed he made for believers was decorated in all of the trappings of Egypt, leading the faithful back into religious slavery.
Right down to Amen Ra at the end of all the religious veneration.
Every single one. In the name of God, we pray. Amen. Yep, there you go. I have besprinkled my bed. I have cast a small amount as perfume on my bed, my death bier, my stretcher to carry a corpse, with myrrh, a fragrant yet bitter extract from the bark of an Arabian gum, the symbol of Islam, seen as a sacred religious oil, rendered gall, a lesion or wound, an irritating blister or sore. Aloes, which is an aromatic byproduct of decaying wood, often used to fumigate and thus kill, from India, which is perhaps symbolic of Hinduism. From ahal, to shine, which is what Satan does, and cinnamon, cinnamon, dried powder from the inner bark of the cinnamon tree. I borrowed wood from the Chinese, perhaps a metaphor for Confucianism and Buddhism. The bed Paul made for Christians would be a deathbed, an aromatic product of decay, designed to carry a corpse. And his method of sprinkling, it became baptism, the Christian rite designed to replace circumcision. Boy, there's a lot there, isn't there?
I have some mediocre ones, but that was so much better. Never mind.
I want you to choose to continually walk this way, living like this, for us to fully experience being lovers.
Beg your pardon?
Till morning. Yeah, being lovers. Lovers engage.
Well, you know what's wild? Yahweh never tells us how to live. Not really. No, he doesn't.
Does he ever tell us to be lovers? Does he ever tell us, I'm creating a bed, I want you to lie down with me in that bed, and we're going to be lovers?
Nope.
Doesn't Yahweh project himself as male?
Yes.
I'm a male. I'm a male.
I'd find this odd.
Is it appropriate for two men to lie down together?
Nope.
Nope. It isn't.
Or even if I was a woman, that's still just a bit creepy.
Yeah,
that's creepy. Yeah, it's creepy. Even if we're dealing with the set-apart spirit, I don't want to climb in bed with the set-apart spirit. I am delighted with the set-apart spirit's counsel, wisdom, insights, support, nurture, garment of light, which is the Torah. Got a, total and complete respect. But my engagement with the set-apart spirit is when I'm sitting here translating and sharing insights from Yah's word. I do not have a relationship with the set-apart spirit when I lie down in my bed at night. I'm just going to tell you. It doesn't work that way. That's what this is saying. We're going to be lovers. We're going to be lovers till morning. Yeah, we're going to be until morning. Let's be lovers, enjoying one another's company, reveling in the pleasures of lovemaking.
Until morning, and what happens after morning?
Then
I'm going to take your money, and I'm going to walk away. I'm going to find another stooge that I can tell wonderful things to that will believe that, oh, you were such a great lover. Okay. This is the whore. It is so obvious that it's the whore. Now, there it is. However, as we move to the next statement, the narrator is no longer speaking in first person. Yet, since this is the consequence of succumbing to the allure of religion, it remains true no matter how we interpret the preceding story. It is all for naught. The whore of religion is not a reliable, dependable lover. Having ruined one life, she moves on to the next. However, it is for naught, because the man isn't in his home. He has walked on a path that is far away and is now estranged. If you, Larry, decided today that you wanted to sleep with a whore, are you going to bring the whore into your house, or are you going to go find a place that you're going to have to leave your wife and family to go and engage with this whore?
Well, I'm not doing that, but if I were,
I haven't given a lot of thought to that. What have you there, Larry?
Yeah, I know.
I
That's
really
not a fair question,
haven't.
Jimmy. Yeah, is it? Because it's not.
Yeah, you want to know with me?
If you
it wouldn't
found
matter.
the prettiest whore on the planet and you paid for said whore, I don't know if you ever watched the Big Bang Theory, but one of the programs is that Raj figures out that this woman at the bar that is coming on to them is a prostitute, and then the two guys, because Howard is having a bad day, they set up this Jewish woman to be a prostitute, and they pay for the experience for Howard and design it to have her give not only the girlfriend experience but the Jewish girlfriend experience. And Howard's just excited that somebody else has paid for and arranged this prostitute to be his companion and give him the Jewish girlfriend experience. I'm going to tell you that I wouldn't succumb, even if you guys all passed around a collection plate and had the prettiest girl just show up here one day and say, I'm here. The guys chipped in and paid for it. So we're all in the same boat there. But beyond that, the issue here is, and this is the message, is that those who engage with a prostitute, the whore is a prostitute, they leave their home to do so. So now that person is not only estranged from their family, they're also estranged from the whore, because the whore got up and left them in the morning, but they had to leave their family, and so they're now all alone.
There's another insight here. Can I just throw it out there? And I know you know this insight. Benjamin. He moves towards the sea of who? The Goyim, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
there
that's
it is. It's right there.
That's right. He left his own Paul. Not only does the Benjamites, the tribe, leave Yehudah and rail against Yehudah and moves to the sea of the Goyim, but think about Paul. Paul left Yehudah and went to the Gentiles to make his bed with the Gentiles, and guess what? They all rejected him.
Went all the way to Rome.
Yeah, all the way to Rome, and he writes Timothy in Rome, everyone has rejected me.
Well, at least the Romans had some sense.
And you know, it's very funny, too, because you get the Messianics that don't want to let go of Paulos. And they say, you really have to have the Jewish mindset to understand him. And it's like, wow, you know, these were all, what you'd call Yehuda. They hadn't distanced themselves by calling themselves Jews at that point.
Yeah, no,
these were Yehuda.
What's interesting, of course, is that if Paul is assailing the Torah, which he is, and that's obvious, then there's no way that a Jewish mindset is going to salvage that. If he was
like castration.
Right. Now, there's a lot of Messianics that claim, I castrate anyone that's Torah observant. There's a lot of Messianics that claim that he's assailing the Talmud and not the Torah. But then if he's assailing the Talmud, how could you have a Jewish mindset and appreciate Paul if he's assailing the cornerstone of your religion?
Yeah.
If you have to have a Jewish mindset to understand Paul, how come he only went to Gentiles?
That's the point. Why did Yahowah end up writing to all the Gentile assemblies? You know, I mean, why didn't he pick Paulos? I mean, there's a lot of...
I really don't think the people in Corinth or Galatia or Thessalonica, all those, Greek and Roman provinces, I don't think any of them had Jewish mindsets. They were all voiced.
As a matter of fact, what Paul says in all of his letters is that it's the Jewish mindset that he railed against. He called them Judaizers.
Yeah, I did.
And so if you had a Jewish mindset, you were Paul's mortal enemy. I mean, how do people with a straight face say such rubbish? I mean,
they can't let go of. They just cannot let go of religion. I mean, look, I actually had a guy who's reading Yada Yahweh and ITG, and he keeps wanting me to ask you questions. I just keep answering him, out of ITG and Yada Yahweh notes I have. But there's a fellow who was a professor of religious studies. Get this, professor of religious studies. Speaking of saying things with a straight face.
Right.
I just want to read this real quick. Please study this out carefully. First of all, Yahowah is a misunderstanding of how the Hebrew Bible, I didn't know there was a Hebrew Bible, presents the name of God. Frankly, we don't know how to pronounce the name, and he's got in modern Hebrew.
Oh, he's an idiot.
Now listen to this. But it's not Yahweh or Jehovah. Both these are misguided attempts to read consonants, Yad, He, Wahi, which with the vowels of Adonai. No kidding. Which the rabbis used to which the rabbis used to vocalize the consonants. Only a lack of understanding of what the rabbis were attempting to do. Listen, they would see these vowels as Adonai. So to pronounce God's name in vain, they would never put them together. Now, what I asked him was,
by the way,
how would you pronounce?
That line of argument has been
how would you pronounce Yasha Yahu? I said, Rumpelstiltskin. I mean, really. I mean, it makes as much sense. Yasha Yahu
the most convoluted piece of junk I've ever heard.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
But by the way,
I
that
hit mine.
argument, he did not come up with that argument. I saw that argument 20 years ago. And that Adonai was written above Yahowah for the express purpose of providing the vocalization of the name, and that's how they got Jehovah. And so that argument's been around for a long time. But everything the man said is not only untrue, it's irrational.
Oh, sure.
And it's irrational to say that you cannot pronounce Yahowah, because the letters are among the 22 Hebrew letters, and that every word that they're in and every name they're in is pronounceable. So to say that these common letters among the 22 in Hebrew are not pronounceable when every other letter is pronounceable is just stupid beyond comprehension. Also, to say that they are consonants is directly inconsistent with the way they are pronounced in every Hebrew word, because they're always pronounced with an open mouth sound, which is a vowel. But beyond that, even Josephus, when he was saying the four letters that comprise Yahweh's name, what did he call them? Four consonants or four vowels? Four vowels. Right.
I don't know enough Hebrew to carry on a conversation with a 3-year-old, but I do know enough words, and I can look at the words and see how the letters are pronounced,
right,
and easily come up with how to pronounce Yahowah.
Oh, I did spend several days, because I didn't want to just look at the most common words like shalom and Eloah and goyim and Torah and Haya to come
and
up
Eloah.
with. I looked at every single word in the entire Hebrew lexicon. I looked at every single. I took days. I just said, I'm going to be thorough. I'm going to do this once. And what I came up with is the hey is pronounced as
yeah.
in the
Shawa, like
range of 90 to 99% of the time. So the hey is pronounced 98 to 99% of the time, and it's 99.9% of the time when it's the end of a word or a name.
Yes.
The hey. And that every important Hebrew word that has the hey in it, like Torah, it is pronounced without exception. The second thing I found is that there is no circumstance where the Hebrew Y is any different than the English Y, and therefore it's a consonant vowel. In English, you look up the Y and you look up the W in English, and both are registered as consonant vowels. And they're exactly the same. Why do you think we came up with the name W?
Yes, to use.
Right. If you look at, and even look at how Hebrew influenced English, and you look at the English words with the W in them, and almost just an overwhelming percentage of them are like owl or oath or own.
Or howl.
Or howl. How do you think we came up with all this stuff? And so, but then when you look at the yod is straightforward. I mean, there is a 0% chance that the yod is anything other than a consonant vowel, just like it is in English, and it's pronounced as the Y is in the English word yes. There was no doubt whatsoever. And hey was 99.9% certain. Only left you with one letter. And that letter, you have a choice. It's either the U sound or the O sound. And so if you look up the number of times that the Wah is used in Hebrew, it's about 80% of the time it is pronounced O, and about 20% of the time it is pronounced U. So 80-20. Then if you look at
it's not only that,
Hebrew words,
the O
like Torah
is the basis
and
for light.
And Elohim from Eloah, 100% of the most important and common Hebrew words, 100% of the time, and the most common words is pronounced as an O. But the one that clinched it for me was all of the names like Yoel and Yob, and there are about 50 of them, which are contractions of Yahowah and some other word, like Yoel. Yahweh is God, El. That in the contractions of Yahweh's name, like Yob and Yoel, it's the O sound that is kept. It's not Yub.
Yeah.
It's not UL. And so,
Judah.
right.
One of the
It
things
was
I pointed
really,
out to
really,
him,
really clear as to
yeah, it's the
how to
contracted
pronounce it.
names that make it an O, and beyond that, I mean, you got two options. You know, Yahweh was telling Abram to walk out of where? And walk
Right.
towards him, which is light, which is O. I mean,
Right.
take your pick. I mean, use your mind.
Right.
You know.
Right. Right. Yeah, or is
So you have
is light,
there's 80%
or was the
chance
place
it's
he was asked to walk
Yahweh
away from.
and a 20% chance it's Yahuwah.
Well, I don't
Yeah,
believe
there is.
that. I think,
But I don't think it
yeah,
really
there
is
might be a
20%
20% chance on paper, but not out of
Yeah,
meaning
like
because of.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
But not.
I know
think,
where I'm going to stake my
I think
claim.
Torah, Eloah, and Shalom, and
light.
Yoel and Yob. I think that those words make it less than a 1% likelihood.
Yeah.
Now,
And
you
was
know,
Yahweh
I'm
trying
still
to
not-
hide
I'm
his
still
name
not-
and make
I'm
it a
still willing
secret?
to say if somebody wants to use Yahuwah, well, I think there's less than a 1% chance that that's right. I'm just not going to fight with them. I'm just going to say, you know, I came to another conclusion based upon all of this evidence. I would invite you to do the same, but I am not going to part company with somebody over that, because there is a fraction of a 1% chance that we could be wrong here.
Well, you know
And
what? You're right about that, and I don't part company over that. But you know what I've found almost exclusively with people that don't know Yahweh's character?
Yeah.
They use the you. I'm telling you. I've been in 1,000 debates with them. They use the you every time.
Yeah.
Because
I'm going to
they
tell you,
don't.
I use Yahudah for and it's and I know it's not Yahudah, it's Yahudah. And it's just what it is. You know,
Yeah,
there
of
are
course.
lots of places where the you is conveyed that I don't think ever was a you.
And I agree with that. I always thought it was Yahudi, not Yahudi.
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
you know,
Yahudi.
you're going to get Yahudi today. That's what you're going to get. If you say Yahudi, they're going to think you're crazy.
Right.
I know.
Right. I know. So,
Listen, I'm not extremely dogmatic on this because, literally probably for the first 4 or 5 years when I was coming to know Yah, I called him Yahweh. Because,
Yeah, I did too.
based on my research, when I knew and I understood, I thought that was his name. I've come to know more, I've learned more, and I've realized it. But so if someone's wanting to call him Yahweh or Yahowah, I'm not going to dismiss them.
I would agree.
Wrong.
Yahweh, I will not dismiss somebody over Yahweh. I'll take the time to explain how I came up with Yahweh, and I'll use Yahweh. But I think, at least that is a major step in the right direction.
Yeah, because the Yah, once they lose the Yah, we're done. I'm done with it.
But
I'm
Yahweh,
tell you that.
Yahweh is an honest attempt to put God's name back into his testimony.
Yeah.
And so I am not going to condemn the individual who is doing that. I mean, the third statement, he etched in stone, is unforgivable to render his name for naught. To eliminate his name to my Lord or Adonai or Lord God, that is making his name for naught. And that is an unforgivable sin. So you can't help that. Can't fix that. But somebody who's come to Yahweh, I'm going to tell you that the God I know, he's not bothered by that.
No.
It really isn't.
Now, there are a lot of people who use Yahweh who don't know him. But,
correct. There are.
Like I said, to me, that's not a divided line. I'm not saying I'm kicking you out because of that. At least
but I will tell you
attempt.
something that I have noticed here, and I came to notice it, James, as I was searching for, I wanted to find, the last time I did a major search is I was trying to see if I could justify the claim that I had parroted from Ken that something happened in 133, which is the poisoning of the waters under the temple and fulfillment of number
1,033.
Yeah, 1,033. I couldn't find it. I just couldn't. I mean, I found one wasn't documented in any way. And so I just said, just not enough substance here. But as I was doing the search and I was trying to fine-tune the search, what I found is there's now hundreds upon hundreds upon hundreds of websites where people are using the name Yahowah. Now, if you were to go back 15 years ago, you wouldn't find one.
You wouldn't have found it at all. No, you wouldn't.
No.
I never
And the
saw
other thing
it.
I found is that terms like mikre and terms like that really only began to appear as we were trying to flesh out Yahweh's testimony and conveying the words that were important to him, that they now have become part of a international discussion.
Nomenclature.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
That's awesome. I mean,
No, it's
I
a beautiful
found-
thing. I mean,
I
obviously
found
they're
my
reading your
translations
material.
all over in hundreds
Yeah.
upon hundreds upon hundreds of sites as I was searching for this answer. People I didn't even know. I was just, okay.
You'd be surprised how many people have tried to disparage me by saying you're using Craig Wynn's translations, and I'm thinking, I say to them, so you're going to attack me for using the most accurate translations that there are that I know of, and yet you're going to say, here's my answer, Psalm 45. Well, translate it for me. I mean, you can't just throw up something like that to me. I got to see what it says, and let's go over it and let's find out where Craig's wrong. How about that? Me and Jackie had that discussion this week. Just let's show me where he's wrong. I mean, just
by the way, there's times that I've been wrong, and people have
share.
JB has brought up things where I was wrong. Now, I will tell you that when JB was doing a lot of translation, and you would say, I don't know how you got here, and this is not what I'm getting, and we'd go through it and find out that what I was saying was defendable, and was likely accurate. It's just that you really have to scratch and
well below the surface.
Yeah, well below the surface to find it, but that it was the most accurate and likely definition. But one of the things that I would say in your defense, not that you need defending, Larry, is that I've done something here recently where I went from doing a radio show 5 days a week and twice on Friday to stopping it so that I could spend time writing and translating. And when I did that move, there's something I stopped doing. I don't answer most of my emails. 90% of my emails I do not answer. And the reason I don't answer them is I can do one thing okay. If I try to do the two, I'm not very good at it. I get distracted. And so, Larry, your thing is to engage people, to reach out to them, to support the family, and to reach out against people who are religious in hopes that one person out of every 10 arguments might be open-minded enough, not the person you're arguing with, but somebody that reads it would be intrigued enough to come to know Yahweh. And that's where you spend the free time. That's where you spend your free time.
That's right.
You can't be good at that and do that and be also spending your time translating. You just can't.
That's right. That's right. I've never claimed to be either.
Right.
But I do seriously consider translation.
But how many times do you see me out on a social network site engaging people?
I don't. You don't do that.
I don't.
That's not your bailiwick.
I can't translate and write and be doing that.
That's right. I know that.
So it's like saying, okay, with your translations are being used by Larry. Good. Your everything that you do on these radio programs is being categorized and posted by Richard. Good. I don't have the time to do that. I can't do that.
That's why we do it.
If Richard's doing it. Right?
Yeah, but that's why it's done. That's why Richard does what he does. That's why I do what I do. I just, for the life of me, if somebody's going to attack, let's say somebody who attacks your translation, I don't know, as an example.
I got no problem with that.
Okay, great. But why don't you correct it? Don't just throw up, is this all you ever read? Psalm 119? Why don't you try Psalm 45? And Psalm 45, first of all, if you're calling it a psalm and not even calling it a mizmor, I already know you're using English translations. So where are you coming from? And let's see this translation. What, am I supposed to pick up a Bible and try to read it? I'm not going to read anything out of a Bible.
Yeah, and by the way,
we're told not
numbers,
to do that.
Even citing the numbers, if you look at the Dead Sea Scrolls, what we use as numbers right now,
they're not even in it.
Hugely different than the order they appeared. The 119th was around 90 something, and it was at the very end. It was the last of them. There was like this enormous, expensive production of parchment, and then after the end of what we call the 119th, nothing. Which means that you know for certain it was the last of them. There was not let's just say that the 119th Psalm was 99. That means there wasn't 100. It was the last of them. It's the concluding of the Psalms. And so when you cite a number, you're not citing anything that means anything to anybody other than it will tell you at least where to look. But then, gosh, like in these Proverbs, the difference between what the words actually say and what you find in the English translation is so radical. And so I would agree with you, Larry. My view is that, yeah, you feel free to criticize my translation. And by the way, if you can approve them, great. That would be wonderful. But if you're going to criticize them, then come up with a more accurate translation. Demonstrate why mine is wrong and why yours is right.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's my point. When somebody comes in and they, we're word people at this point. You've got to show us that the word's there, what the root of the word means. We're going to do some examining. You don't just throw up, hey, Isaiah 15:32, and run down the street like I'm going to even bother to look it up.
No, I want to say that you say something as part of this program. There's a lot of really smart people that are going to look it up and think it through. Like I mentioned that there was a particular term for mountain, or hill, actually, for hill, that was used 7 times in our last program. And I got an email saying, no, that word for hill appears over 100 times, and here's the 100 times that it appears. And a very subtle difference. But you got to be really careful, because the people listening to this program are thoughtful. And what I actually wrote was a little different than what I said. What I wrote was more precise. The word for hill was used exactly 7 times to depict a specific hill. While the word is used a bunch of times generically, it is only used 7 times to actually depict a specific hill. And so the point is that the audience for this program are very thoughtful people, because you only get to know Yahweh and become part of the covenant by being thoughtful. And so you need to know what you say is going to be checked up on. I wrote that the
Towrah of God currently down.
Actually the summit of Mount Moriah, where Abraham and Yahweh met, where Yosha's body spent a little bit of Friday afternoon before it was destroyed, and where beneath which is the Ark of the Covenant. And I said that the summit of that mountain is 777 meters. And a meter is important because it's the length of a human stride, so it's exactly 777 strides above mean sea level, above the sea. And a bunch of people went to try to find topographical maps, which are unbelievably difficult for Jerusalem. And the consensus was that, it could well be 777, but it might also be 776. Okay?
Okay.
But I'm going to tell you, that's how precise and how eager people are to verify. I think it's great. I mean, I was laughing, but I'm not laughing at. I thought that effort was marvelous. Like I tried to find credible elevations and topographical maps for Jerusalem, and everything related to Jerusalem is grayed out. Even Google Maps, which I can bring a Google map of my home here in Ohio, and it will show, it'll show a leaf on a piece of ground cover. I mean, it's so detailed. But you get above Jerusalem, and you get down to even 4 clicks above the finest resolution, and everything grays out.
Why is that?
I think there's lots of reasons for it, but that is the nature of things.
Well, obviously,
and topographical maps for Jerusalem are few and far between. They're hard to find. Man, I probably spent a day trying to verify these elevations and just. But it is, by the way, it's 777 strides from the set apart, the Holy of Holies, in the Second Temple where the covenant stood to where the covenant is right now, 777 strides. And the top of Mount Moriah, where Abraham and Yahweh met, is exactly 777 strides above the sea. So, I'm telling you, that's pretty extraordinary stuff. Horizontal and vertical.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Yes, it is.
Three sevens. And by the way, there are three Zions, and none of them is Mount Zion. The Mount Zion, which is the western ridge of Jerusalem, just before it plummets down to the sea, across from the Central Valley, the Tyrolean Valley, the Central Valley. That is not Mount Zion. Mount Zion and the city of Dode are coterminous. Zion is actually not Mount Zion. It's just Zion is coterminous with the city of David, according to Yahowah. Zion is coterminous with the highest summit of that mountain where the city of Dode is. The city of Dode is in the lower part of the ridge of Moriah, directly below the Temple Mount, which is the middle ridge of Moriah. But the summit of Moriah is still uninhabited, unmolested. There's nothing built there. And so there are 3 signposts, 3 Zion on Moriah. City of Dode, the Temple Mount, and the summit of the mountain. Fairly profound stuff. All right, fellas.
Well, I did have I had a Zionist write a post that I read, and she's very wealthy. She actually had called me a couple of times from Israel, wanted me to work with a group of hers. And I saw one of her posts, and it says, "You cannot be a true Zionist unless you're Jewish. You cannot be a true Zionist unless at Pesach you pray." Pesach, of course, is how she would say it. Pray towards Zion. And I thought, well, in Yahweh's eyes, she's into Judaism, of course. And I thought, well, in Yahweh's eyes, you're not a Zionist. Not really. Not at all.
No, a Zion is a signpost along the way.
Along the way.
It is a sign that is posted along the way from man's world to God's world. That's why the city of Dode is Zion. It's why the Temple Mount is Zion. It's why the place where the covenant was confirmed and the covenant, Ark of the Covenant now stands, is Zion. There's signposts along the way.
Can you imagine that nonsense? Talk about driving people away. I mean,
and the world is becoming hugely anti-Zionist. They don't want to become, they don't want to be seen as anti-Semites, so they always condemn Zionists. And they have no idea.
And then to make statements like that, just plays right into the hands. I mean, it's just stupid.
It does. There's a lot when you're reading Yashayan, and Yahweh rebuilds his, or actually not rebuilds, but he creates his house for his family on the highest summit of his mountains, which is the ultimate signpost. The people that he says go there with that are enriched with and empowered with exuberance on their faces are Goyim. Goyim. We're coming from around the world. So I'm going to tell you, that means that Goyim are Zionists.
That's exactly right. And I mean, when I read stuff like this, I thought, well, here's a person that clearly doesn't even know you. I mean, clearly they don't know Yahweh.
Yeah.
And since she doesn't know Yahweh, what is she doing making these
Right.
posts?
And by the way, is Zion spelled with a Z?
No, it's
No.
TS.
No.
I know.
TS. Yeah. And the TS is the signpost. It's depicted as a person resting. So it's depicted as the person Shabbating, if you will. Sukkah, the person camping out on Sukkah. But anytime you see the TS, which you have, that's a sign. It's a signature. It's Yahweh's symbol. So signposts along the way. Zion. TS.
Well, I mean, there's nothing wrong. Nothing
By the way,
wrong with
it. Is it Zion?
No.
And is Zion one of the most commonly pronounced Hebrew words?
That was Shalom was really big.
Yeah, wouldn't you put it in the top 20?
I would.
Yes, I would.
Yeah,
I
top
would.
20? Is it
Yeah.
Zion?
No.
Where do we get the O in Zion?
Back to,
it's TS.
Mm-hmm.
TS what? Y? W? N? TS Y W N.
It's a wah. Mm-hmm.
But since we don't know how to pronounce the yod or
wah.
the wah.
Zion. It's unbelievably stupid. I mean, I don't know.
But the yod and the wah are both in Zion. It's TSY. So the TS is the first letter, the Tazdeh. Y, the yod.
And then the wah.
And the nun.
Yeah, I know. I'm seeing it. It's just, it's
a sign from the hand of God, TSY, that empowers, enriches, adds to, shelters, and protects the nun, which is the child born with an inheritance.
Inheritance.
Yeah, well, it's astounding that somebody could even come up with that stupid thing. That's why I had to read it. Now, this is your professor, a professor.
Yeah, but how could it not be Zion if the wah is pronounced U?
Like a U, you mean? Yeah, I know.
Zion. I am a Zionist.
Well, it's as though that there are people out there. See, what they've done is they've looked at Yehudi. They've looked at Yehudi.
I follow the Torah.
The Torah.
Well, it's got to be Torah because we don't want to have the H has got to be the so it's got to be the Torah.
Right. Very good.
Shalom. It's Barney Rubble speak again, and that's what it is. And I know that's what it is, and you know that's what it is. And I have to laugh at most of it, and it's become sad because I do realize that there are people that are misled by people all the time. But one thing I'm going to tell you, talk about signposts. When I'm talking to somebody and I just meet them and they spell Yahweh with an O, I know I'm talking to a serious player here. I do.
Oh yeah, that's exactly my view. In closing, I want to say one thing. This is what I expected, but it still needs to be said. You went through a rough week. There was a lot of people you thought were piling on. Most were actually in your corner. But you got yourself in a pickle, kind of reacting a little too hotly. And 99.9% of people, Larry, would have just walked away, said, I don't need this grief, and walked away. You didn't. You owned up to it. You participated. You contributed in a powerful way. It's exactly what I expected from you. It's why you're my friend.
Well, I appreciate that, and I just really, I can, when I saw the way that was Richard had posted it in such a way and unpopular that, and it just looked like JB had said all these awful things, and what he was doing was quoting this person that was doing the attacking. And by the way, that lovely person doing the attacking, she really was set me up as a leader and unpopular, which I'm not a leader. I'm not a leader.
I don't want to go back into that other than to say that's what character does. You know, sometimes we all goof, and you just own it, and then
I made a mistake. That was it.
You step right back into it, and it's one of the, I use the term a man's man, somebody with character, with backbone. That's the kind of people I like. So I am happy and proud to say you're my friend.
Well, I appreciate that.
There's JB and Richard and Kirk and Scott and so many others. You're my friend, and you honored that friendship, if you will. I don't know what the right term is, but you substantiated my confidence and trust in you. By the way, you handled something exactly what I expected. And,
okay, well,
if you're dealing with a religious hothead, they can't do what you did. A religious hothead is incapable of doing what you just did.
Well, it is what it is. I mean, I made a mistake. That's it.
No, but we all make mistakes. It's the way you responded that's important. It's just a class act. It's a class act. Even Yahowah admitted to making a mistake. When he did, after he said, I grieved over creating man.
I did. I do recall.
Yeah.
He said this could have been a giant mistake, basically.
Yeah, I said, I think I made a mistake in creating man. Because he's become nothing but a vicious killer. Look at this mess.
Think about it.
Yeah, what did Yahweh say? Okay, I can fix this. Yahweh said, I can fix this. I can resolve this. I can make this right. And he didn't shirk the responsibility. He went right in and fixed it. Cleaned up the mess. Yep.
When you think about the mistakes you've made in your life, none of them compares to having created man.
Oh, no. Well, I'm not going to go.
There's an upside to that, though, too,
my mistakes are less than his mistakes. I'm not going there. But
you're on your own there, pal.
Yeah, you're on your own there, JB.
Let me ask you one quick question, Yada. You have a grandchild. What color is her hair?
Originally she was bald as a cue ball.
Right.
And then the hair was so thin it appeared blonde. But at this point, I would say it is most definitely going to be dark brown.
Dark brown, okay.
Dark brown. Her eyes are absolutely green. But my son has green eyes. My eldest son has green eyes, and his wife has green eyes. It's a double recessive gene.
Wow, that's so rare.
So it was impossible for my granddaughter to have anything other than green eyes with a double recessive gene. So she has green eyes, and her hair is now coming in, and it's brown. And she is the most beautiful little girl in the world. I know that everybody thinks that, but that's my view. That is my view.
I have to argue with that.
Yeah, I'm sticking with it.
She
is the most beautiful, the cutest, the sweetest little girl in the world. And by the way, I'm actually convinced of that. That's just the way it is. I'm sure that everybody who's ever had a granddaughter feels exactly the same way. Yep.
Well, yeah, I'm glad we're all back together.
Yeah, I am too.
All right, pal.
Great experience. Thank you, fellas. And we'll finish the seventh proverb maybe next time. I can't wait to jump into Yahshua because, man, that has been a gold mine of insights.
Now, is that number 7 or 6?
I just finished 7. I'm going. Well, wait, this is 5, so we're going to go. Yahshua chapter 1 is 6.
Okay.
7 is Yahshua chapter 2. And then 8, rather than going into Yahshua chapter 3 for 8, 8 is actually, when I started to track down everything about Dode and Solomon related to Zion and building the temple, I just found so many interesting nuggets as to God's relationship with these two individuals and what was important and what he said and why Dode couldn't build the temple. And I always thought Dode couldn't build the temple because of the timeout that God gave him in association with his sexual indiscretion with Bathsheba. Nope, wasn't it.
Well,
and so I ended up learning so daggone much as I was studying this. I'm going to write an entire chapter based upon God's interaction with Dode and with Solomon. And I'm not a fan of Solomon. God happened to like Solomon. Personally, I don't. But God did. And God didn't like Solomon. It's interesting as to why God liked Solomon. And God said exactly why he liked him. And so, man, I'm going to devote chapter 8. I know it goes off the reservation. I wanted to follow Yahweh all the way through. But I found so much stuff that I'm interested in learning and absorbing. Chapter 8 is going to be on God's conversations with Dode and Solomon. Now, you know why Dode couldn't build the temple?
No, not really.
You'll never guess it. Never guess it. Because he was a man of war.
Well, he always said he had blood in his hand, but
he was a man of war.
I thought they were referring to the other.
The first thing that God says when he returns is that man will no longer have any implements of war and will no longer teach war. That's the first thing he says is going to be different. No war. No weapons, no war. And Dode was a man of war. And so God says, I love you dearly, but you can't build my temple. You can't build my house. My house will not be a house of war. Didn't know that was the reason. So I thought that was fascinating. Yeah, why? Because what's Yahweh's home all about? The doorway to life, right?
Right.
Dode was, he arose as the man who killed Goliath. And he fought innumerable battles after that. So there you go.
Makes sense. Makes sense.
And by the way, when you're dealing with the F-bomb, boy, I'll tell you what, Dode was an expert. I mean, you read about Dode's first, Dode's first 7 children. There were 7 different mothers. And then you read about the next group of children, and he had 2 or 3 with one woman, but all the rest were with different women. And then God says, by the way, now I've listed 10 or 12 or something like that, but I'm not going to even bother listing the ones that were with concubines.
Yeah, he was a busy man.
He was a busy man.
And he got so much war in there, huh?
Yeah, I mean, he was a lover and a fighter. I mean, Dode did lots of stuff that God's not pleased with, but didn't matter because he was right. You're right with God. It doesn't matter doesn't matter if your behavior is bad.
Indeed.
Yeah, wonderful example. All right, guys. Well, thank you. It's been fun.
Enjoyed it.
Oh yeah.
Yep. Same.
Bye, JB. Bye, Larry.
Good night.
Bye-bye.
Good night.